All right, sorry about that. I had to take a quick break in between that video. Unfortunately, I had some things come up and then a meeting, so now I'm back to it. Where we left off, though, we were putting our section views on paper. So we got a couple of them in here. We do need to do our horizontal section still. And so what I want to do is kind of like stick these together, the two vertical sections through the island. I'm going to put those together as a group. And then what I would like to do from there is kind of then group my, if possible, group my horizontal sections down below in a similar fashion. So we'll see what we can do. All right, so let's copy the, oh no, hold on. Let me get this lined up a little better here and then I'll copy these down and we will find our next views. So bada bang, bada boom. Let's find our next view here. Would be either this guy or this guy. What I want to do actually before I call this a view, there's something that we typically do with horizontal sections. If you have a countertop that's sitting above that horizontal section, let's say you're drawing some crazy cabinets or you're drawing something that needs like some other attention, like another horizontal section for some reason, what you're going to want to do is you do want to draw in your countertop line. And so what we're going to do with that is I'm going to take the center of my ellipse here and copy that outline from above. And I'm going to paste it right here. And I'm going to make a dead center of this ellipse right here as well. All right. What we're going to do as we do this, because right now that countertop is not supposed to be visible in this view, but we want to note that it is there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on the geometry dash layer to represent like a hidden line that goes around that ellipse. We go back to our page over here. Now you can see that. Really, that's just kind of a nitpicky thing, but honestly, it does make a world of difference with understanding what you're looking at. So whenever you have a horizontal section through something that has a countertop over it like this, you do want to make sure that you include your dashed lines to represent the countertop there. Okay, so next we've got the section view through the top of our upper counter. All right, so that's going to be right about here. And let's see if we can make this work. If we can't make it work, I'm not going to sweat it. We might have to split these up into 2 pages. If that's the case, it is what it is, and you can't really do much about it. But let's see what we can do here. All right, so yeah, definitely isn't going to fit, clearly. I mean, really, this is, yeah, as dumb as that is, it barely fits. So what I'm probably going to do is make a third page for this print, and we're going to put this view on that third page, which, I mean, it is what it is. It seems silly to do that, but really there's nothing you can do sometimes. So here, let's make an F1.2 page. And then we're going to erase these other views that really aren't important anymore. All right. All right. And then we're going to adjust our viewport lines like this, get everything nice and centered, and then we're going to take our ellipse shaped counter and we're going to line it up with our view title down below. Using that move command again, as always. I've probably said it about 1,000,000 times. No, it's probably not quite that many, but in training, I do explain that a lot more than I probably need to, just because it's just really repetitive. But you use it every single time you make a drawing. So, all right. Now that we're here, let's lock this viewport and let's go back to the previous page and let's lock these viewports too. Oh, actually, let's delete you. Get on out of here. And then we'll lock these viewports here. All right. And these ones actually already did. Very nice. So then we're going to lock those. We're going to relabel this. And then we're going to fill out our arc references after that. Then we'll move on to dimensioning, and then tagging, and then elevation and section calls per usual. All right, so first off, let's pull up the architectural drawing side by side with our actual print here. And then we're going to just compare the two and don't mind that. We're going to compare the two, and we are going to get our arc references added to the print. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so all of our views, fortunately for us, are on one page, which makes things a lot easier. Typically with Axio views, more than likely, you are probably not going to have an arc reference. That is pretty standard. Every once in a blue moon, you'll see an architect that draws an Axio view or a rendering of your item, and then you can use that as your arc reference, which is great if you can. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. So next up here, plan view. Plan view appears to be A,7 on this page here, which is page A406. You can see that here in the corner down below as well. All right, and then elevation views. So first off, we got this one over here, E1 on A406. This one doesn't have an arc reference. There's actually no side elevation of it on their architecturals, which is fine. We'll just write NA for that. All right. And then we do have the side elevation that does have an axis panel, but this one does not. So because these are so similar and they're kind of like opposites of one another, what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this here as E,1, or I'm going to actually first label it as SIM for similar, and E-1/A-406. All right. That'll take care of our arc refs on that page. Let's move on to page number 2. All right, so appears we don't have a reference for this, which is all right. I'll just write NA for that. This one here, we do have a reference for it. It's this view right here, J9 on page A406. All right, and then this one here, we kind of actually do have a horizontal section through this, which is actually more convenient and less likely, or it's not very likely that this happens, but it does sometimes. So here we go, A406. This will be our horizontal section through the island. Now we actually don't have a section view through the top. So on the last page here, we're going to write NA for that. Like that. All right, so arc references, we can consider that done and out the door. Let's move on to our dimensioning for our print. So dimensioning, we did briefly look at this a little earlier. So there is some things that we're going to have to do differently than what's on the architecturals. Now, what I mean by that is that the countertop and countertop width and I guess length or length and width, those are going to be slightly different. They do show radiuses on their architectural, but going back to what we talked about with ellipse shapes, they actually don't have a dimensionable radius that is able to, because if you put a radius on an ellipse, it does change everywhere that you put that radius. So just to show you real quick, if it lets me do it, if I pull a radius here, and I pull a radius here, and I pull a radius here, it's going to consistently be different no matter where I click. And that's just because radiuses on ellipses are a variable to make the shape. So you won't really see ellipses very often, but just keep in mind that when you do, the way that you're going to dimension that is slightly different. You're going to pull a dimension from far left to far right, like this, and you're going to pull a dimension from top to bottom or the other direction like that. And that'll be enough information to give our shop members enough to work and build this item. So they just need to know their long side and their short side for this. Again, that is a very elliptical shaped property. Like you don't see that anywhere else. All right. You can go a step further here. You can dimension this guy too. This is the smaller tabletop. Might as well throw the dimensions for that here on this drawing. Okay, perfect. Really, that's about all I can really show for this view here. So really, we're not too far off. That's pretty much what we got. And later, we'll add the elevation calls into that, but for now, we're going to leave it as is. So our elevation views for the drawing, though, I'm going to give myself just a tad bit more room here. I'm going to slide this over another space, extend these viewports over just a little bit, because I am worried about running out of space here. I need to dimension my heights, and I also would love to dimension my overall dimensions for the ellipse shapes too. So let me do that. So height from floor to countertop, that's pretty normal. We're going to go from there to there. And then we're going to go dim linear, and we're going to go from there to there, dimensioning the two heights of my countertops from the finished floor. And I would even like to go and do this too, just to give my overall height change from floor to very top of top counter. All right, there we go. There we go. Okay, sweet. So I'm adding AFFs to that for above finished floor. It looks like I forgot to add my floor hatch here, so I'm gonna have to do that still. A couple of the things that I can do. I can also dimension my two widths, which are in the plan view as well, but it doesn't hurt to have them here. It may be slightly overkill, but it doesn't hurt to have them here. It might provide some context as to what we're looking at. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is maybe even go like this too, just so I can add in a little bit of extra that I don't have in my plan view right now, so that these make more sense. Okay. Dimensionally, it's probably about all I'm really looking for there. So really, I'm looking for countertop heights mainly, but if I want to add any other horizontal dimensions in this view, I'm going to be adding those here too. So let's move on to the next, this view over here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go from there to there to show the width of the smaller counter above. I'm going to show there to there. Again, even though that's in my plan view, I'm still going to show that here. And there to there. All right, so sometimes when you're dealing with views like this, you can theoretically like copy your dimensions from one view to another, save you a little bit of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that in a second here once we get this view dimensioned out. There we go. And again, make sure that we are labeling our AFFs for above finished floor anytime we're dealing with things like countertops to show from the finished floor to the countertop, this is what it should be. All right. I guess what I can also do is add in these two dimensions that we added before. like that. Okay, and then yeah, that's pretty much what we've got there. So as mentioned previously, we're going to be copying some dimensions from these views to the next views. So let's go ahead and do that now. Starting with the view we just dimensioned, I'm copying all these dimensions over using a common base point. So from there to there, I can copy those over and they apply to both views. So it kind of just makes things really efficient to be able to copy and paste your dimensions from one to another. Not always going to be the case, but in cases like this with a common shaped object that's like one side the same as the other, then it's going to be doable for this type of thing. Since we caught the floor hatch in here, let's go ahead and add that in too. So I'm going to copy the floor hatch from over here. And I'm going to paste it to my views up above. All right, there we go. So dimensionally, we're good on those. And we're going to move on to our section views next. So let's get these going. Again, like we did on the elevation page, I'm going to slide this over and give myself a little bit of breathing room here. Okay, so we're going to be more detailed with this view. So we're going to bring these dimensions out, and I'm going to label them all in a line with each other. So even though these are pretty far away from the view, it does look better if all of your dimensions are stacked with one another over on the side. So instead of, what I'm talking about is if you were to put dimensions here and kind of like stagger them like this, like putting some here and then some over here, really that gets to be a little messy. And so really the better method is to group everything together as much as you possibly can. That way as we get through our drawing at the end, it's going to look a lot cleaner. So dim continue. Okay. And you know, it's not terrible to have your dimensions go all the way out to here. You can also shrink these lines back to here if you'd like to. I'm going to leave them right now as they are. I might change my mind about it later, but for right now, I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, so just keeping on, keeping on. See about adding some dims here for these overhangs. And you just want to make sure that does match up with what is in the architecturals here, because it does have a varying sort of overhang on the inside of the long side at 7 inches, 36 feet. Just checking out my dims to make sure I didn't forget anything, you know? Normally, what I would like to do is put these dimensions down below, and I probably will put those down here. Let's see, I may actually have some discrepancy there, but I'm going to see about that in a minute. Let's see. Just going back and forth thinking in my head, like, what do I want to do to dimension this a little better? So I guess I'm going to start here in the middle and dimension this thing out horizontally from long side to long side here. Just like this. There we go. And we're going to add a dimension here for the overhang. Add a dimension here for the overhang. And then I'm going to go from here to here. And I'm going to go from here to here. Whoop, sorry. There we go. Sound effects. All right. Let's see. Sorry, got one thing come up that probably is a little more urgent. Um, ooh, I'll have to come back to that one. I'll have to do some research on it before I can respond, so I can't really get back to that just yet. All right, sorry. Let's go back and let's finish out dimensioning what we've got. So I would like to go and dimension this here too, the little piece that sticks out. And then we're going to do one on the opposite side as well. So over here. Okay, okay. Okay. Again, my bad. Sometimes I make weird sound effects when I'm drafting. I can't explain that. So, all right. We got that. Let's go over here and we're going to do something very similar to the fact that it's almost going to be copy paste of what we've got, although it's the shorter side. So I can't just copy and paste all my dimensions like I would like to. So I gotta do the hard work of adding these back in. Okay. There we go. There we go. Oops, come on. Get back there. There we go. All right, so now we're kind of looking at this view over here. Maybe even another step further. I just thought about this. Overall dim from left to right might be a good place to put that. We're looking at a different page now, so if somebody out in the field was trying to look at this drawing and they needed to flip back and forth, make it a little bit less convenient to check the overall dimension there. So I'm going to add that here too. So overall side to side for this view, overall side to side for my long view too. I'm just going to add that right there in line with, holy moly. Weird. Hold on. Let me regen my AutoCAD and try to flip between pages to see if that fixes that. That was a little weird. All right. Why does that keep happening? Okay. I gotta adjust my viewport out a tiny bit. And then I'm going to then dimension these vertical dimensions and these bottom horizontal dimensions. Maybe I'll just follow through with the horizontal dimensions first, since I've already begun doing that for the other drawing. That way we can match that same pattern. There we go. There we go. Okay. So now I'm actually second guessing my previous notion about keeping these dimension strings close to the view. I kind of want to actually bring these back here because it's getting very messy very quickly. So in lieu of showing these directly attached to the object, what I think I want to do is bring these back. I don't want this to be confusing, so there we go. Here we go. I think that looks a lot better. I'm going to do that over here too, though. Bring those back to there. Cool beans. All right, now let's do our dimensions over here. So now that I've actually moved these, I legitimately can copy these over, which was unintentional. But I can do this now, which is kind of convenient. Let's see. And then dimensionally in these views, oh, I almost forgot these little 3/4 guys. So let's go ahead and add those in too. I'm just going to copy them from this view over to the other one. It's a lot easier than doing a whole dimension and all that. So let's just do that real fast. And then we'll go on to working on the dimensions for our horizontal section. Horizontal section, what I'm kind of anticipating to see here is that we want to show panel width from left to right. So very similar to what we did previously on the plan view, except this time we're dimensioning the panels rather than the countertop. And then same deal here. We're going to go boom, boom, and then throw our dimension off to the side over here. All right. That'll work. Okay. A couple other things to dimension here. Usually with panels, if you have a reveal, you want to include a dimension for said reveal. We're going to throw that right here in the middle, just like this. And then we got to also label it to read reveal too, so that way it's understandable as to what we're looking at. So spline reveal, just like that. Okay. Oh, we got that dimension here. I'm trying to move that off to the side a bit so it's not in the way. We can also make a copy of that dimension down below. I'm going to use the mirror command to make that happen. These don't have reveals here and here, so we're good on that. All right. We think of anything else that we need a dimension on this. That might be about it. You don't usually dimension the distance between the ribs, so that you don't have to worry about the radiuses again, because it's an ellipse. The radiuses really don't matter. That'll all be varying depending on where you pull those from on the print. Yeah, dimensionally, I think we're good. It seems simple, but that's it. So next view on the last page is really going to be the same deal. So we need to go overall width, overall depth, and then from there, that's probably actually about it. Yeah, really that's about it. So not much more you can do there. Well, I guess I could give locating dimensions from the side of the countertop. Let's do that. We'll do that because it'll be kind of nice to have. That way we can show that it is in fact centered, even though there's nothing that really specifies here. I may go back and do that on the other view too. I'm also going to check to make sure that this, oh no, this would be a solid line because it's actually looking down at it, and it wouldn't be a hidden line. Sorry, I was thinking that might be something too, but no, we're good there. So back on this view again, just like what we did on the last one, I'm going to provide a dimension that goes from there to the edge of the counter, and then provide a dimension that goes from there to the edge of the counter there. And then same deal, just opposite side here. All right. Okay. All right, we've got that all figured out. Dimensionally, I think I'm going to leave that alone. It's a little messy, but it'll be all right. Same deal with that. A little messy, but we'll survive. So next up, let's go ahead and add our elevation calls to this guy. Actually, I was going to do my finishes, but I'll do my elevations first. Elevation and section calls, and then we'll go and do finishes. Okay, so elevation view. All right. I'm going to paste that right there. Okay, this will be the side without the access panel. So let's go ahead and label that as view 5 to match our drawing here. Trying to line this up as best I can here. All right, that'll work. Let's see, this side is the one with the access panel, which is view 3. We'll move that over to here. Whoop. Come on. There. And this is one of the short sides. This would be the side without the access panel, because the access panel is about here. And so we don't want to see it here. So we're going to go with view 4. Okay. And then the last bit here is going to be view number, what do we say, 5, I think? No, 6, sorry. Like that. Okay. Then we got our section views to drop in here. So let's look back at our page here to see what we've got. So when we're cutting through the short side, we're going to see the long side. And when we're cutting through the long side, we're going to see the short side. So we need to make sure that those are labeled that way on the print. So we're going to go like this. And I'm going to flip that over to there. All right. We'll move that up to about there, and then we'll add the labels to match up with our drawings on the next page. So that would be, again, we're cutting through the long side, so we want to see the short side. It'd be 2 on f1.1. All right. And then we can literally copy this section view down to our other drawing over here, because it'll be the exact same. This one will be different. This will be, so I got to check again to be sure. This will be view 2. Or no, sorry, view 1. Again, I'm getting myself confused now. So view 1, we're going to see the long side of the table, because if you think about it, I'm cutting through it this way on the short side in the view, and I'm looking at this side over here. So it is a little confusing, but that is how it would legitimately work. Oops, hold on. I did something goofy there. Okay, so section and elevation calls are good on that. We can add some horizontal section calls, which we don't want to forget about those. Let's rotate this around and paste these where they want to go. So we need one through the top. Oops, oh, that's a little too far. Okay, so one through the top and one through here. We'll put that a little bit further down here. There we go. So the one through the top is view 1 on the last page of our drawing set, which is f1.2. This one here is going to be view number 3 on f1.1. There we go. Then you can take these section views and you can copy them to your other drawing pages. So like this. Now these, I can paste them there, but I gotta also adjust them too, because that flag is a little too far and it's not on the page now. So I need to come back to my elevation views in this view, my model space, and bring them back to somewhere that's more manageable like this. All right. Let's go back to our drawing here to make sure that we got that all right. Okay, cool. Now it's a lot of stuff to deal with here, but we've got it. Oh, so all of our views are called out. We are now free to move into the realm of adding our material calls. So let's go ahead and check to see what we've got. We have MT01, and just to be sure, what we're going to do is we're going to look up the materials in the on-site material log, and we're going to pull those up to make sure that we're using the correct information. Okay, so what you want to do is go to that. So we're going to pull that up, and then we're going to go find our drawing, or our job number, which is 6436. All right, 6436, here's what we've got. So the MTL1 that they're using on the project is going to be called out. Oh, I'm sorry, one sec. I had the wrong job number for some reason. I got to fix that too. This is for Travel Inc. We are dealing with Mercedes-Benz, which is 6438. I probably mistyped that earlier, so I'll fix that. My apologies, one sec here. I just want to make sure that's right before we move on so I don't forget. Okay, so 6438. Here we go. So MT01 is labeled as ML1 on our end. It's that Cleopatra aluminum chem metal. So let's go ahead and add that in wherever that occurs. So first off, looking back at their drawing, ML1 is used on the vertical panels here and at the base here. So let's call that out. Oops, I want to make sure I'm in my viewport here. Okay, so ML1. So it is getting kind of messy here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to make sure that I don't run into any problems where my drawing has got a lot of crisscrossing going on or a lot of things that overlap, because I don't want that either. Oh. Okay, so ML1, we're going to apply that to this face here. It's also going to apply to the trim and that little nub of material that sticks out there. So I'm going to add a leader. I'm going to draw a leader here to this here so I can point that out. Say none. And then I'm also going to make this arrow closed instead of a circle. All right, so I got all my ML1 materials called out on this section view. I want to add in a label for the PL1, which is the Stingray leather veneer, or sorry, Stingray leather laminate ML1 or PL1. PL1. Jeez. You can tell it's getting to the end of the day. I'm getting all flustered now. All right. And then we have our QSO2, which, going back to the material log for this project, QSO2 is our QZ2. All right. So that's what we're going to label that out as. Okay. So once we have these labeled, we should be good to mainly, I'm going to say, like, we should be able to copy and paste these across most of our views here. We'll have to adjust the leaders for the longer views, but honestly, that's not the end of the world. Could be a lot worse. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to paste them throughout. just like that. So connecting these to our drawing, just like so. Oop, there we go. Just like that, and just like that. Boom. All right. We're gonna go ahead and finish these out. And then what I would like to do from there is move my way back because I kind of skipped over my plan view, so I need to still do that. Fortunately, that's really just calling out QZ2 for everything, so that's a super easy one to pull off. We'll go QZ2, no arrow, and I'm going to label this. In this case, I'm going to use the move and mid between 2 points to center it on the ellipse like that. And then I would like to maybe drop one there as well. So QZ2 labeled in 2 spots here, okay? All right, so that's labeled out. I do want to point this out as being an axis panel here. So I'm going to make a little note off to the side down below that says access panel. Okay. We'll move on to our section views next, which are going to be a lot of the same labeling as what we just did. So because these are a different view scale, I can't just copy and paste those material calls over, but I'll have to relabel them. And that's, it is what it is. It'll be fine. So I'm going to label these out. And I might even try to bring these in a little bit just because of how large these views are. I think it would be easier to see the material call next to the object it's calling out if we do it like this. All right. I'm going to put a second leader there. Okay, and then I'm going to now label this down here too. So I'm going to put this note off to the side just like so. Bring that in to about there. Bring that in to about there. Okay, and a couple notes that we don't have currently. So technically there is a material that I need to spec still. This will be some paint under the side of the plywood, which is going to match the stone finish. So we did look that up the other day when we were working working on this drawing. And I don't have a paint call for it yet. So right now I'm going to label as PTX, and I will switch it out once we do have an official paint finish sample for that. So PTX for paint. Typically, when you see an underside of a counter, it's always going to be primed black or PRBLK. That is pretty much the standard, but in this case, they're asking for something specific, so we got to give it to them. Okay, and ML1. All right, then ML1, you are coming with me. We got to label a few things down here with you. So ML1, I'm just going to make a separate leader for this. Oh, okay, like that. Change that bubble out to be 8 arrowhead for this guy. Just like that. All right, and then yeah, that should be pretty good. We can now take these and copy them to our other views. Oh, hold on, I almost forgot. Actually, other view singular, my bad. All right. Oh, and the little QZ2 guy. I gotta add that in too. Okay, now that that's done though, really what's left is we have this top-down view. The only thing I would really do need to label here is the PL1. So I'm going to snatch one of these PL1 calls from up here, and I'm going to paste it down below. Preferably, it would be best to leave it off of the view as much as possible. So you don't want to overlap a lot of things. You also don't want to, I know I'm overlapping a couple dimensions, so I'm being very contradicting there. But really, you want to try to minimize overlaps and minimize putting notes on a drawing as much as you possibly can. So, all right. Let's go back to the last page here, which this one here, just to make sure, this is MT01. Make sure I didn't mess that up here. Nope, I got it right. So that's ML1 for those. Cool. Just making sure. So let's copy this view or section call onto this page. And we're going to label these as ML1. So kind of like this and kind of like that. Boom. Okay. How about that? So that's about all we need for materials now. I did catch something earlier. I'm going to try to fix that here at the end, but we do need to add in some grommets here as well. There's 4 in total. So I want to make sure we add those in as well. So don't let me forget. I'm going to go back to doing that later. Let's see, anything else we need to do here? I think it's mainly just the page notes at this point. So actually, we'll just do the grommets now, because what the heck. Grommet hole is located under raised area. Refer to section for details. So let's go look at that section and see what they show. Where indicated, they want to see a grommet hole for a PS2C, which is a standard Doug Mockett grommet. Most of those you're going to be able to pull directly from your tool palette under hardware and then grommets. So if you want to go there, you can see if we have the PS2C. If we don't have it there, I'm actually pretty sure it's included as part of the, yeah, it is right here. It's included as part of the blocks at the bottom of the drawing here, or the model space here for this specific job. So what we're going to do is copy these up to our view above. We also need to copy them into our section views too. So let's put them here, because this view is going to be the most accurate view to be able to show that. Now they want it to be placed below that overhang. That's fine. We kind of want to see if they give us a location first, and if not, we can then try to scale it if absolutely need be. I think I will try to scale it here because I'm not seeing anything that says, hey, this grommet is this blah, blah, blah away from the edge of the desk. So I'm going to try that and see what we get. So from here to the inside is 3 inches. So center of grommet to edge of panel is 3 inches there. All right. Whoops, hold on. 3 inches over, just like that. And so I most likely I'm going to have to move my dimensions just slightly, and that's okay. Sometimes you'll get into an issue like that later that you wouldn't even think about at the point that you're drawing it. So let's go ahead and slide these over 2 inches too, just to match up. Just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to mirror my grommet from that side to this side. And then I'm going to copy the grommet. I'm going to rotate it again, so that way they're all kind of facing the same direction. And we'll move that the same distance out 3 inches. Okay. So I'm also going to try to provide a dimension that shows how far away this is from the unit in the middle. So what I'm going to do is write a dimension here from the center of the grommet to there. And I'm also going to write a TYP on this too. That way it signifies that, hey, this is a standard dimension for all of these grommets. It's typical. So that way they don't have to question it. It's already there. Okay, now is the fun part. We got to add these grommets to our section view still. So again, I should have caught that earlier. That was on me, but we're going to fix that right here. So from that corner of the panel over should be a total of 3 inches. We'll mirror that over like this. Okay, and then we're going to copy these. All right, and then the last thing I want to do is I'm going to use the wipeout command in AutoCAD to draw a box around this grommet, which is really what it does is it creates a kind of like virtual whiteout. It's going to put that over your hatching, so that way you don't have to trim your hatching or explode your hatching or any of that. So you can avoid having the headache of doing that by throwing a wipeout there to fix that issue. So we've got that labeled in there now, which is great. Grommets are placed. We should probably point to them and say what they are. So let's find out what we call those grommets in the material log for the job. If we have one in here, if not, we will add one in. Looks like it's hardware 55. Awesome. So hardware 55 is the grommet. Cool. Very nice. Let me see if I can find a good place to put that. I kind of like that. I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, it's better than crisscrossing my dimensions. So I'm going to label this as hardware 55. All right, that'll work. If you want to go and do that as well on these section views over here, that wouldn't be such a bad thing. Let me try to add that in if I can. Okay, hardware 55. All right. Once we have all these placed, oh, that's not pretty. Okay, let me flip this and delete that. Sorry, I didn't like how that overlapped. It looked terrible. All right, so now that we have all that labeled out, we're good on that. We got our dimensions, our materials, our elevation and section calls, floor hatches are there. Let's see, anything else to add before we call this one? And oh yeah, page notes. Okay, let's do that. So I know we used ML1, we used PL1, so let's add those in. We don't actually have a paint call for that mystery paint. So what I'm going to do is put in a material call for it, and I'm going to label it as PTX-TBD. And let's see, any other materials to add? Oh, QZ2. Don't forget about the quartz top. QZ2. All right, let's do that. And then what else? We don't have a pole on this. There's no cabinets, but we do have hardware 55, which is our grommet. And I think that may actually legitimately be it. So then let's look at our general notes and see what we can dig up here. So again, no cabinets, so none of these really apply. This is not a banquette or a bench, so there's no notes there that apply to this, but we do have die wall notes. So let's go ahead and add these in, the ones that do apply to what we're dealing with. Top and bottom plates dadoed in a 1/4 inch, wire chase routed in, or wire chase routed hole to be 1 inch minimum from outside of edge of stud. Straight wide die wall ribs to be 16 on center max, which we do have that one straight die wall in the middle, so we do need that note. And then we're going to put this note here, curved die wall ribs to be 6 inch on center max if being used to form or bending stock panels. So we're assuming that there will be bending stock on these ribs for those panels, so I'm just going to use that note right now. Let's see, scribe all base to floor, which we cannot do here. We can't really do that. All this base is kind of custom to the unit. Sometimes if you have cabinets or things like that, you may still need these base notes, but you can't scribe metal to the floor in general. So like anytime you see metal base, you cannot actually scribe that to the floor. And so that note won't actually apply to this drawing. And then this one, the note about the base being sent in lengths, that's really only if you have base that's on a linear run of straight base, like on a wall. So we do still need the wall, floor, and in-wall blocking by others. That just applies to most drawings. That's going to be the floor being by others here. There's no equipment on this, and there's no steel. Which actually I think we do need to add some steel brackets just to cover the load of how much this is going to weigh. So we can add those in too. Let's see. Let's go to our section view and add those in first, and then we'll see about like what brackets we need to put into our page notes. Okay, so starting with the long side, let's go into our standard library for brackets and see what we can dig up. So this countertop overhang is about 18 inches. Anything that's below 24 inches, you can use the C flat bracket. Anything that's over 24 inches in depth, you want to use the standard C bracket. The difference is the C bracket has an extra piece of metal that sticks down here, which gives the countertop a little bit more support. If you're dealing with a countertop that isn't very deep, so again, talking about a countertop that is less than 24 inches deep, you can use this guy. One thing you want to be sure of though too is make sure that you are not interfering or intersecting your blocking. So I'm actually bringing that back even further to about there. So I'm behind my wood blocking there. You can see it does cover up a little bit of the holes in the wall, and that's okay. They can use the other wiring chase to attach their wiring to this. We do need to add a hardware call for this though, so let's drop one in. Okay, and just to verify, we are using the C flat 18. Okay, so C flat 18. Let's add that into our page note since we just added it. That should be hardware, sorry, not 26. There it is, hardware 25. And this will be hardware 2518, like that. That'll be the long, or the side with the more overhang on it. The shallower side, we probably won't use the 18, but let's label this first. I'm going to increase this as well. Okay, so we got that. Now let's come over here and let's go ahead and add that same bracket on this side and see what we're dealing with. Okay, so clearly the 18 is going to stick right out of that counter, which we can't have. So looks like we can go down to the 9-inch bracket for that, which is a little small, but it should be okay. And that'll be hardware 25-9 instead of hardware 25-18. All right, we got to add that to the page notes as well. Oh, and then we got to mirror that too. My bad. Mirror that across to there, just like that. So let's go ahead and add that in. Again, whoops. Oh, again, we got to add that to our page notes like the other one. just like that. I think hardware and page notes wise, we're actually good now. So what I'm going to do is copy all of these using copy base. I'm going to use a common base point to then paste these across the other areas of my drawing here. Oops, hold on. I was still in a viewport. Just like that. Cool. Very nice. Okay, so we've got all those placed. Very nice. Everything's labeled. Sweet. All right. One last thing, and then I think we're done with this guy. I'm going to add these brackets into our horizontal section here. We want to be looking at the plan view of the bracket. And then what we need to do is align these. So we're going to use the align command in AutoCAD. And we're going to align these brackets to the sides of our ribs. And we probably want to go maybe every other rib or maybe every third rib because our ribs are very close together here. So we can do something like that. Align and maybe line this up here. But I'm also going to bring this back a little bit because it does need to sit behind the blocking on the ribs. Actually, I think I already had that there, so we might be... Oh, no, I got to move it back a little bit. So probably about there. Probably about there. To be behind the blocking. I'm going to start adding these in, spacing them appropriately here. So let's go every third stud. I think that'll be enough to support the weight of that counter. Okay, and then immediately you can see as it rounds that corner, you really do need to go down to that 9-inch bracket just because it gets very narrow very quickly there. All right, so just got to go and apply these to every third stud again, just like we talked about previously. 1, 2, wait, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. There and there. All right, now, once we get to about the halfway point, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to mirror these across. That way we can save ourselves a little bit of time here with these. I'll mirror, oh, come on, mirror those across here, just like this. And I'm going to mirror these to below, just like this. Okay. I'm going to also try to rearrange this a little bit so it's not overlapping. I'd really prefer not to have that overlapping if I possibly can. Same thing here. A little extra busy work, but it's definitely worth it. Makes the drawing look so much more professional. All right. So that'll work. Okay. Okay. I'm going to add in one more thing, and I promise you that's it. I want to add in this this guy here, the little two button fixes that we have drawn in at the bottom of our base trim in this section view to at least show how that access panel is intending to actually work. As of right now, we don't really show it, and we really do need to. So I'm going to lower this down, 0.125, lower this down, 0.125 for the 1/8 inch gap. I'm going to draw in that 1/8 inch gap here too. Again, that was just because where we took our section view from in our drawing from earlier, like our model, it left us with that. So we didn't have that actually in our section view, but we drew it earlier as an example. So I wanted to make sure we didn't forget about that too. All right. Let's move that up again. Move this up again. Just like that. That'll work. That'll work. Okay, so now we can get rid of that, and we're kind of showing that access panel now at least, so that's great. Let's move back to our other drawing, and we need to add hardware 24, which is that button fix, to our list of hardwares here. So I'm going to lower this down a couple of line items, bring in hardware 24, and then I think we are done. I will probably check this in the morning to make sure I didn't forget anything here, but I think honestly we're looking very good with this drawing here. So for 24, copy base, whoops, copy base. I'm going to replace the bottom half of our page notes to make sure that that's included here, okay? All right, cool. Let's save this. And I'm going to publish it for now. But again, like I said, I'm going to check it in the morning when I'm done with it because I want to make sure that I didn't forget anything. And there's a lot going on with this print, so there's an easy or a pretty great chance that something could have been missed. So let's move this to Mercedes-Benz drawings, prelim plots, and new drafting files. I'm going to move it there and save it there. All right, once that's done, we'll call this video done for now, and I'll mark that packet as review. I just got to find my packet tracker real quick. Come on now. Spin that hamster wheel. All right, there it is right there. F1 for Mercedes-Benz. Go ahead and check that thing off as review. And we will, oh gosh, why is it being so laggy? There we go. Mark it as review. And then what we're going to see then is it'll disappear from our list. Keep in mind, I'm going to check it in the morning. I would as well, just to make sure you didn't forget anything. You could save your CAD file and close out. And we are out of here.